I'm James Bangle. I'm a former park board trustee, I think 90 to 93.
I'm Raymond Lewis, and everybody calls me pretty much Ray. I believe I served on the park board from 1999 till about 6 years after that.
Hi, my name is Jerry Kinnear. I served on the park board from 2006 to 2010.
My name is Vic Maceo, and I worked on Galveston beaches since 1968 as either a lifeguard or a director, and retired in 2007.
My name is Cheryl Rozier, and I'm the project manager for the Galveston Park Board. I served on the Park Board of Trustees starting in 2007 and was appointed and elected the chair in 2010.
Hello, I'm Craig Brown, Mayor of Galveston. Served on the Park Board of Trustees for 5 years, from 2008 to 2013. And then at the end of my term, I was elected to City Council and became the council liaison for the Park Board for the next 5 years. So I served continuously from 2008 to 2018.
I'm Buzz Elton, actually William C. Elton. I'm a former Park Board trustee. I've served on the Arts and Historic Committee for probably about 6 or 8 years. I've been president of the Hotel Association, board member on the executive committee of the Texas Hotel Association, and president of the Apartment Association in Galveston as well.
Hi, I'm Joyce McLean. I was member of the Park Board of Trustees from 2012 to 2018.
I'm Maureen Patton. I'm the executive director of the Grand 1894 Opera House here in Galveston. I began serving on the Park Board as a trustee in 2016, but prior to that, I was on the TDAC committee for a number of years, made a decision to apply for a trustee position, and then served 6 years, which is the limit of what you can serve.
My name is Marty Fluke. I'm a trustee of the Galveston Island Park Board. I was appointed in 2019 and once again in 2021. I've served on the Finance and Operations Committee, I've served on the Beach Maintenance Advisory Committee, and I'm currently chairman of the Board of Trustees.
Babe Schwartz established the Park Board of Trustees. He realized that without tourism, Galveston was never going to evolve into anything, just a little backwater town with a beach. So he enacted legislation to protect that beach, which was the main attraction and is the main attraction to Galveston. Babe Schwartz knew that the city had not taken care of tourism or the beach. When I was on the park board, one of the other members was Marilyn Schwartz. And Lyda Ann Thomas and Marilyn Schwartz and I would go to lunch quite frequently. And Babe would show up. And actually, most of what I have just told you was taught me by Babe. When I was on the park board, I wanted to do the job vis-a-vis the beaches, because that's the park board's business. Actually, he created the first park board of trustees in the state of Texas. I understand there are several park boards around the state now, patterned the same way, funded by hotel motel tax. And Babe understood Galveston. He was born here and grew up here. He knew more than anybody that I've ever met what Galveston needed to prosper.
I think the park board was created, and I knew Babe well. As a matter of fact, when I was on the park board, my colleague to the left on the committee at that time was Marilyn Schwartz. So I not only heard from Babe a lot, who was at one time my neighbor, lived across the street from me, and Marilyn. It was created so that the park board could take advantage of the hotel motel occupancy tax that comes into the city. And you had a dedicated body of individuals that thought about nothing other than that. Increasing tourism and spending appropriately the hotel tax and giving back to the beaches and the facilities that bring more tourists to the island. I think that was his biggest thing, is to make sure that you've got a dedicated body of folks that think about nothing else but exercising how that enabling act was done, the wording of it and how it's intended, and you got a dedicated bunch of folks that think about nothing else but that. Not paving the streets over on Broadway, not fixing the roof in some place over on part of the city of Galveston, but just dedicated to tourism.
The Act Amendment that was initiated by the city of Galveston, and I believe it was late 70s, because things started to change in the late 70s. The Act Amendment, the city did not want to spend ad valorem tax dollars on services that tourists were using. Service like beach patrol, beach cleaning, the amenities that were on the beach. Even the arts, I think, was involved because I know that they were part of the Senate bill that created the hotel motel tax, similar to the way it is now. It's changed a little, but it's still pretty close to being the same. It was created back then by Senator A.R. Babe Swartz and his wife Marilyn, who was the chairman of the park board 2 different times. Being its own entity makes it easier to get things done in a timely manner and in an efficient way. Life and death is a daily thing for the beach patrol. Clean beaches, that's a daily thing for the park board. And it's all one. Knowing what's going on, having the ability to fix it, change something that may need to change. It's not going to always please everyone, but the park board's been in the business long enough to know how to make it work.
You know, the park board was created years ago thanks to Babe Schwartz, because it was evident that there needed to be a vehicle in this city that really could address our business, which is tourism. And that's one of those 3 legs of the city. I mean, there's without a doubt. And they have done a superior job in dealing with that, even as the world changes. They're right on top of it. They're right at the forefront.
I was appointed to the park board at the recommendation of 2 council people, Robert Lynch and the former president of Texas A&M Galveston, who was on council at that time. Both asked me to do it, and so I did.
I had a friend who had a popular R&B club here in Galveston. His name was P.J. Ziegler. He had been the first African American to serve on the park board. And he, myself, and Carl Kelly were good friends at the time, and we used to hear him talking about the park board and the things that they did, and it just piqued my interest. So I said, if I ever get a chance to that, I'm gonna throw my hat in that ring. And I believe Cruz was the mayor at that time. She put my name up.
By serving as a trustee, as I mentioned before, and being the chair of the park board for a short period of time, it has been instrumental in my ability for institutional knowledge for the organization, helping with FEMA and recovering the Ike repair work, because I was on the board before and after Ike, and it's provided me a great deal of wonderful insight with the ability to do my job.
Well, being on the park board and understanding the park board and understanding the role of hotel occupancy tax, which funds the majority of the activities for the park board, it's helped me at city council and as mayor, I think, get a appreciation of the importance of the tourism industry, not only for activities that are related to tourism, but for the entire community, and how the tourism industry has such a positive effect on the island in general.
My wife said, well, why don't you serve on city council or go for that? And I said, well, I really have got so much tourism background that I'd like to share some of my experience. And I enjoyed it so much, I have put in an application to serve on the park board again.
This summer it will be 4 years that I've served as a park board trustee, and I've been chairman for a year, and I've served on BMAC and FOC for 4 years. I retired in 2008, and I had a hobby that had me traveling around the United States of America. And when I decided to give up that particular hobby, which was retriever field trials, training dogs, I decided I wanted to give back to the community. So there are 3 revenue generating entities in the city: the port, the park board, and city, and I didn't want to go to work for the city. So I applied to be a trustee of the park board, hoping that I could use my revenue generation and budgeting skills to help move the park board forward. There were 6 applicants for one position, and I didn't expect to get appointed, but I did. So here I am.
Publishing of information about Galveston, the advertising of the beaches and the hotels. Good grief, you got some of the finest hotels in America, and they do advertise and they bring people.
You know that there's some very well-defined ways in which those dollars can be spent. That's the nature of it. It's created to do that, and that's what it should be done, and it should not waver. It should not waver. The definition of what the park board does is, in my estimation, more clearly defined than many other entities. You have a narrowly defined focus. So it's not hard to understand. You get more tourists on the island, you create hotel occupancy tax, and you spend those dollars appropriately. And whether or not the park board is doing a good job or not is easily to determine. And that is by, what does hotel motel occupancy tax look like the previous year, the previous quarter? So you can easily see how well the park board is doing. If it's increasing hotel occupancy tax, it's doing well. If the beaches are looking better, it's doing well. If the seawall is clean, I know that that who does that is kind of confusing sometimes. But when those things are done, and I can't get down the seawall the way I'd like in the middle of July, then the park board is doing its business.
I think many years ago, the city, working with the park board, we came to understand that the park board's mission is not only to do and have activities that are best interest of tourism, but also how that tourism, those tourism activities affect the community. And the park board has done a very good job of understanding that. And the community, I think, is educating themselves, and the park board's played a good role in helping with that education to let them understand the importance of tourism and how it affects their daily lives.
I had a great opportunity to work with the auditors at the park board for a number of years too. And yes, I do believe that. They've been very transparent, as evidenced by the fact that we've taped every meeting. Every meeting is, you can go online and see exactly what they say. We had a representative from the city at all of our meetings when they could attend. So I think that it's very transparent, that the park board says out loud and in front of the cameras that this is what our needs are, this is what our goals and objectives are, and we encourage, the city to understand that. In fact, many times the city would have the park board over to the city council meetings. Sometimes it didn't happen as often as we'd like to have had happen, but it is important that the transparency goes both ways.
The multitude of things that the park board does, and I don't think the general public knows that. Not only the hot tax and the advertising and nationally advertising, all that. That's the CVB. That's the Convention Visitors Bureau. Then there's the part of different locations, End Lagoon. There's the beaches, renourishment of the beaches. There's the beach patrol. So many other aspects of the park board that people don't really understand. Sometimes people say to me, oh, you take care of the city parks? I don't take care of the city parks. We take care of the beach, and that is one big park.
The park board is a neutral place where people can go. There's nobody who is higher than another. We are there to discuss and to work together, to respect each other. The vision is there, the leadership is there, the transparency is there. I mean, it's a citizen-based trusteeship. It's a citizen-based committee. Every committee is all part of people who live and work here, and other people are represented. Meetings are public. It's probably stands for kind of the best in all of us. I think that most of the time we are on good behavior because we are respectful. It's very apparent when someone is not respectful, and that doesn't sit well with the rest of us. Certainly doesn't sit well with me. And I think that you always have a look to the future that says we're looking for what's best, not best for me, best for us. And that's That's the most important thing of all.
What I learned about the park board that I didn't know before is how complex the business model is. We have 14 revenue streams, and we're, if you will, an indirect sales model. The way we receive revenue is by putting people in Galveston to interact with our service delivery partners. On the other hand, the port sells directly, right? They sell to Del Monte or the cruise ships. So they have a direct sales model, if you will. The park board is a totally indirect sales model. Even our group sales sell convention center space and time to associations and other groups, but the delivery is from the Galveston Island Convention Center. So it's a business model and go-to-market model and market-facing model than I had expected.
I think it's very valuable to know and understand the background of what the staff does, how they're funded, how all the budgets are funded, and the money that's set aside for future development. For example, if and when we have a major hurricane again, and the funding actually stops from the hotels because there's no hotel taxes collected, those funds that have been set aside are there to pay the staff, to help the staff continue to work. And tourism continues to be promoted. So just because, the island might be closed because of a hurricane, the public needs to be informed as to what's going on, how the renovation of all the properties are being done, and when they're going to be back in action again, and then how do we get promoting those same properties again so that we can get back in action.
The structure, organizational structure at the park board, that was one of the things that several of us had our eyes on. Obviously, that we were increasing the value of penny, really. And increasing the value of the penny means we're getting more people staying in our hotels or getting more hotels wanting to be on the island. So all of that, and that was a sizable increase. We thought what you guys have now is monumental.
The first growth was substantial, but the second growth, that's when the penny changed. Craig Island, the state rep back then, I think, and two other, a senator and another rep, wrote a bill, added an additional $1.50 for lifeguard service at that point, I think, and also beach cleaning, I think, got $2. That's how the beach patrol and the lifeguard and the beach patrol and the beach cleaning were funded solely by the hot tax and beach user fees. And the beach user fees were created by the tickets that were sold at Stewart Beach and R.A. Upville Park.
As the park board promotes this island and works to bring in quality tourists to the island, that helps our sales tax, and that sales tax is so important to the running of this community here, and the park board's played such a nice role in helping that sales tax keep up to the level that it is today.
You hear people grouse about taxes all the time, but Galveston has, for a city of our size, for all the services that we provide, we have a very low tax rate. And part of that is because we offset that with sales tax. And probably 50% of our sales tax comes from people who do not live here. When you look at the city's budget, you would see very quickly that the property taxes in Galveston do not even pay for police and fire here. Don't even come close. It takes almost half again of our sales tax just to pay for the police and fire. So you start talking about what does tourism bring to Galveston in terms of municipal projects. Look at your parks that are funded through the Industrial Development Corporation. Go to Crockett Park, go to our dog park, go to what's going to be our new soccer fields, go to Lasker Pool. Those are all projects for the citizens of Galveston that were paid for by sales tax dollars. Half that money came from off the island. So there's a big benefit to the citizens of Galveston. You don't see. Now there's expenses that go along with that too, and we're working very, very hard right now to try to make the tourism areas pay for those areas that cost the city money. But there's also good that comes with it.
Tourism was driving not just Galveston for the people that they were hiring, but also the sales taxes collected and charged saved millions and millions of dollars to all the local residents. Those taxes, I would imagine, amount to about 40% of the taxes collected. Without it, the taxes charged to the residents of Galveston would be far more than they are today.
The hotel occupancy tax is very important to us. We were among the first people who started using that money. So the Arts Council, the Railroad Museum, and GHF were the three recipients of the hot money. And then there was a portion of it that went to kind of everybody else. The whole point of that was to market our organizations and our activities to beyond Galveston, so we could be a part of the growth of the tourism industry. And we pledged really to each other that that's what we would use that money for. It was not to take out an ad in our local paper. It wasn't to do preservation. You know, we all had the opportunity to ask for grants for preserving our buildings. This was about marketing, and this was about bringing people here. I've been distressed in recent years that mission has kind of stretched beyond what I think it needs to be. And I think we need to get back to some very basics. The fact is, people come to this island for a number of things, but one of the things they come for are for performances and festivals, activities that will draw them here and get them to stay. We as an organization, because of the companies we bring in, we ourselves are responsible for over 1,000 or more room nights in a given season, because of all the people who stay here. Just think about that. You've got a Broadway production and you've got 40 people who are coming into this island, and they're staying at any one of our hotels. And they'll stay in hotels from the highest end to the lowest end, but they are spending several nights here. You've got 120 room nights just with the snap of a finger. And that's just one of so many. So I want there to be more of that. I want there to be more support for our organization actually doing the work it does, because we can always use more support. And advertising and marketing is one of the most expensive items on our budget. But if we don't tell them it's here, they won't come.
The number one thing I don't think Galveston residents understand about the park board is that not one penny of their property taxes go to support the park board. Park board is 100% funded by beach user fees and hotel occupancy tax. We start the year with zero revenue. We don't have ad valorem tax coming in. We do make use of some of the sales tax through the 4B sales tax used for beach nourishment. Other than that, the park board takes no tax from the citizens of Galveston.
I don't think that a lot of Galvestonians follow the local contributions from sales tax, because they don't pay it. I mean, they pay it, but they don't think about it. That sales tax is really vital to this city.
And I must admit, you know, when the seawall is packed with tourists and I can't get where I want to go as fast as I want to go, I say, God dog, those tourists down there clogging up the island. But yet and still, I know that the people who have restaurants on the island are doing quite well every time I can't get down the seawall. I know that people who run hotels on the island, when I can't get down the seawall because of tourists, they're doing very well. And if they're doing very well, they're spending more money in all kinds of places on the island that make my life a lot better.
Tourism is a benefit to all the people who live here. We have wonderful restaurants. We have the Grand Opera, Moody Gardens. We have the East End Lagoon. We have the beaches. We have Beach Patrol. All of those are areas that locals can attend and take part in, participate. It benefits them tax-wise. I think taxes would be a lot higher if it weren't for our tourism. I know that the traffic is bad in the summertime, but everyone has to live with a bit of a negative before they get to the positive.
I think people don't understand the role that tourism plays in affecting positively the quality of life for our residents here. I think there's a lot of thoughts that the park board just does and works with activities that support the tourist, but the park board is so instrumental in producing activities that come back, and the funding and revenue that's produced from those activities really benefit residents here on the island. And those activities add to the quality of life to our residents. A lot of the sales tax that's generated is funneled through our Industrial Development Corporation in the city. And that sales tax, which a lot of it is developed by the tourist, helps fund streets, streetscape enhancements, new ballparks, new park improvements for the residents that live on this island. I say always, where could you find a city of 50,000 people that has the availability of entertainment, cultural enhancements, restaurants, and other activities for families to participate in a city of 50,000 people if you didn't have tourism? Our choice of restaurants, the Opera House, Bryan Museum, there's so many activities that are really tourism oriented, but really add to the quality of life and to the activities that are available to our residents.
Let's think about a city. The state is full of population 50,000 cities. Most of those 50,000 population cities don't have full-time fire departments. Most of them don't have full-time transit operations. Most of them don't have an airport, their own water and sewer. Most of them don't pick up their own trash. Here in Galveston County, even cities twice our size don't do those things. Those are all byproducts of being a city of 50,000 residents. And if you look at Galveston, it's very unique because of tourism. Yes, our census says we have 50,000 residents. If you count the number of water taps that I have at the city of Galveston and equate that to people, I equate to a city of over 100,000. If you go to my transfer station that we're hauling trash to every day, those guys are going to tell you we're a city of probably 140,000, 150,000 people and more given the weekend. So there's a lot of municipal benefits. I read every day and I have to chuckle when they say we do everything for the damn tourist. What we do for the tourist, we do for the people of Galveston, because if we didn't have that tourism base here in Galveston, it would be a vastly different place than it is today, and maybe not better. We have about 170 person police force, give or take. Most cities our size have about 80. Police and fire are the two most expensive things that we do. I can point you to some expensive garbage trucks and things, but overall police and fire are very expensive to operate. That is one of the things that we struggle with as a city of 50,000, and what we don't want. I'm not saying that tourism should pay for all 170 police officers and all 110 firefighters. It sure ought to pay for the part of it that gets used the most by that. And Galveston's very unique in that because of tourism and other businesses on the island, we've got over 13 different law enforcement agencies that function on this island in a given day. We're not alone in dealing with this, but it is definitely a big chunk of what the city spends money on for tourism.
I know a lot of the folks that are residents of Galveston that aren't necessarily involved in tourism just don't like the traffic. Sometimes they don't like this issue or that issue. But if you take a look at all the people that are hired and employees of Galveston, I think other than UTMB, I think tourism is probably the number one hiring of all of the employees on the island. I do see, some of the voices that are coming out on the opinion pages of the newspaper, and I think those folks are misled. I really don't think they understand the issues of tourism, why we generate the sales taxes that we do, and how we go off to promote, whether it be PR issues or advertising issues, or the staff or new equipment for the park board staff. Actually, the center that the Beach Patrol has used down at Stewart Beach is a very good example. That should have been replaced years and years ago. And there's funding available, to do that. It's just, some folks just don't understand how important the Beach Patrol is, how important the park board is, and the funding for all of their goals. Without that advertising and promotion, the ongoing funding of the major events that go on in Galveston would not occur. And actually, if you take a look at the major events and the funding for the police and the fire department, you'll probably find that a good share, maybe a third or more of the funding of their budgets come from those tax dollars.
I grew up here in Galveston, so I've been going through summers and summer traffic and beachgoers and parades and you name it. It never really bothered me because for me, I always looked at what the bright side of that was. And I'm a person, people who know me know that I always look for the positive, even after storm damage or COVID or termites or whatever. There's always an upside to that. And for me, we had a huge number of spring breakers here last week. We had some of those people who came to the show. We have some of those people who are going to come back because they had a good time. And for me, we do things that are going to benefit all of us ultimately. Do we need to put up with some traffic? Do we need to put up with maybe some inconvenience? Sure. How many days a year is that? really? I have a hard time. I have a hard time when people say, oh my gosh, I'm just having this terrible time with the traffic or whatever. And I said, how many weeks of that do you really have? You know, you work around it and you find ways to get places.
A lot of the locals don't understand that it's the park board that are doing some of these things. Cleaning the beaches. You know, if the park board didn't clean the beach, it would be a sad situation. But I know those guys are out there at 2 o'clock in the morning cleaning the beach for the next day. I think people need to know that. That's our staff. That's the park board staff that are doing that.
The beaches were cleaned every morning at 5 a.m. Charlie Twyman was in charge of the beach cleaning and beach cleaning crews. And he was a dedicated employee, but he was paid by the city under contract. But Charlie was so dedicated, he had a crew, and if somebody had fun the night before too much and didn't show up at 4:30 in the morning, he went to the house and got them. He was dedicated to cleaning the beaches, and he also was not an engineer, but he knew where all the washouts were. And as the seasons change, you know, the beach width changes. The beach patrol on Stewart Beach alone, on any given weekend, we would reunite over 70 kids a day with their parents. Not just the city, the citizens of Galveston County and the state need to know the job that the lifeguard service and beach cleaning do. It's certainly good to promote your beach patrol and promote the beach cleaning.
You know, everybody thinks of the 3 big public safety groups, fire, police, and EMS. And we in Galveston, we're lucky because we have a 4th equally strong and equally valid partner in the lifeguard service. So we have the 4 pillars that provide safety to people when they visit or when they live here on the island. So under the Beach Patrol umbrella, we have a lot of different programs. Like our junior lifeguard program counts as an independent thing. We have our communications department, which would be our dispatchers. We also have a police department. The Park Board Police Department falls under the Park Board umbrella. And it's a small number of people that are police officers, and all of them are lifeguard supervisors. And so they're working an area as a lifeguard, but that police ability is more tools in their tool belt. But they're lifeguards first, and medics second, and a distant third, you know, is our enforcement. And so we kind of set up our priorities to match that, where we're the island's lifeguards. By city ordinance, we're designated as a lifeguard service for the city of Galveston. We do a whole lot of emergency medical response as well, and all the trucks are staffed with at least 1 EMT. And we do a whole bunch of enforcement actions. Annually, you know, we're doing about 4,000 medical responses, probably 3,500 enforcement actions. For me, what's really special about the Park Board of Trustees is there's a few factors, but one of them is it gave Beach Patrol a home. So we had been bounced around from different public safety groups for years. I mean, since the 20s. We'd been, 15 people, 17 people here, underfunded the whole way through, and never really had the resources that we needed to address what the public needed to have out on the beach.
Before, it was under the direction of the police department, but that was ad valorem tax dollars. Then, after '81, the hotel motel tax came into effect. I worked for the Galveston Sheriff's Office. I became a certified officer, and I was employed by the Sheriff's Office and paid through the Galveston County Sheriff's Office through a contract with the Galveston Park Board. When the Sheriff's Office took over the Beach Patrol, we had no office. Where were we going to go? The whole top of the pavilion was open. Sheriff Joe Max Taylor was the sheriff then, and he went to the Moody Foundation. And the Moody Foundation gave us a substantial amount of money, and we bought a trailer, a pull-on-the-beach trailer that was our office, and had to bring it down every morning. We kept it at the yacht base, and I think because it had our radios and all kind of equipment in it, we had to be there early, set it up. So that was our first Beach Patrol office, was a mobile home trailer. Then as time went, the hotel motel tax began to increase, beach user fees picked up. We decided we were going to take a certain amount of money every year and put it into reserve. As we began to increase our reserve, we used some of that reserve money to remodel and put the offices up on top of the second floor of Stewart Beach. And that's where those offices came from originally.
The vehicle that Babe Schwartz created, where he, when he designed this whole system where hotel tax money went into a quasi-governmental agency that was partnered with the city of Galveston, I think was brilliant. And sharing that, I'm on my third term as the president of the United States Life Saving Association, so I have a whole lot of interaction with other lifeguard groups around the country and around the world. And when I first started doing that kind of work, no one really had a system like we did where they used tourist dollars to pay for a service which is mostly a tourist service, like lifeguards. And that was something that was a little bit unique, because they were duking it out with fire and police in the municipal budgets. And who's going to win those battles? We know it's not the lifeguards, right? But what it did was it allowed, when the park board took over the management, or at least the money part of the equation for the beach patrol, it allowed the lifeguard service for the city to grow proportional to the increase in tourism. And we've seen, such a tremendous growth in tourism. So you definitely have to protect them when they come here. I mean, you have an obligation as a community to protect people that you attract here, that you make money off of, that you advertise for. Now, we deal with a lot of locals too, and we are locals. So, it's not like the locals are not a big part of the equation there, but essentially the tourists pay for the lifeguard service for the city. And I think that's a great model. It's a model that now a lot of places are using because they've seen it happen in Galveston and be so successful. South Padre Island is the closest version of that I can think of, where they're operating off the hot money as well. The park board also has, because this predated Beach Patrol, Galveston was not doing a great job at the time, as I understand. This was before I was born, but they weren't doing a great job of managing, a growing industry of tourism. They wanted to make sure that the standard of hospitality for tourists was, equal to what we needed it to be to keep those tourists coming, keep those tourist dollars flowing into our economy as well. And so creating the park board, really addressed that back in the early 60s when they did that. That really helped with that part of it.
I worked as the director of the Beach Patrol 1982 until 2007. I did work with Peter Davis. Peter Davis started to work for me when he was 16 years old. Two of his brothers worked with us. Now some of the children of some of the lifeguards that have worked for me are working on the beach. I had a father tell me, he said, "I sent you a 16-year-old brat, and you sent him back to me a man." I got goosebumps. But it was so important because you had to teach them how to address an adult with authority, but still realizing they're talking to an adult, and that adult might not like a 16-year-old telling him what to do. That's the most rewarding, I think, teaching kids how to conduct themselves, become adults in a situation that is not always easy, and being able to do it with class. And that's what the Beach Patrol has prided itself on. We did back then, and Peter's continuing the process. It's nice to see.
They're getting not just physical training, but skill training so we keep them sharp and fresh. And that's how you turn a 16-year-old that has never done anything like this before into a seasoned public safety person, because it's just a repetition of those elements that you need to know, whether it's medical response, whether it's hand signals, whether it's swimming ability, like all that stuff keeps sharp all through the season.
We didn't know anything about the United States Life Saving Association, and there was an open water training. We didn't know anything about it. When you were told by a group of professionals from Florida and California and New York, your training's really inadequate. Dr. McCloy was a brilliant man, and he guided me, and along with Captain Miller out of Huntington Beach and Gene Bergman out of Fort Lauderdale, they came down here. They spent time. They didn't get paid. They came down here. I think maybe the park board picked up their hotel room. They wanted to teach us. So Bruce Baird from Laguna Beach came down and spent 3 weeks here, rode with me every day, and we rated each beach. Those are the kind of things that you just can't forget.
Bringing Beach Patrol and the Coastal Zone Management, which cleans and maintains the beaches, under that fold, I think was equally brilliant. And that was what happened, right before I started working for Beach Patrol. And the cool thing about that was because now when you look at those crews that go out and clean the beaches, and they do an absolutely amazing job. For someone who's been to beaches everywhere, I have never seen groups, that are so proficient and so consistent about keeping the beaches clean as here. Enabling that to happen, I think is a really valuable thing. But what the park board's able to do, because they are, a governmental group, but they're not burdened with the massive amounts of responsibility it takes to maintain a municipality.
Some projects that the city and the park board have worked together on, one that comes to mind that the park board was instrumental in moving forward was the Nourishment of Babes Beach. That has had such a positive impact on this community. It's brought an expanded beach environment for our visitors, but for our residents in general, I get so many positive comments about the importance of that new beach. And it took a lot of efforts on the park board to make that happen.
Beach renourishment. Beach renourishment. That was so important. And people think, oh, we just wanted the beaches to be deeper. Yeah, we did, because the beaches being deep and full of sand protect the seawall, and the seawall protects the city. That's why beach renourishment is so important. It's not just so we have longer beaches and more places for people to sit, although that's obviously a good point. It really is for the safety of the city.
Typically, beach nourishments provide a wider, healthier beach that allows what some like to say gives the ocean something to chew on before it hits up on the seawall and or dunes out in front of people's houses. Beach nourishment projects in Galveston predominantly happen every 18 to 24 months when the Army Corps of Engineers dredges the federal channel for navigation. Typically, they go out and they dredge the channel with hopper dredges, which are very, very large ships that then sail over to typically Babes Beach. In the past, we've done this project 4 times, and they have a pipe that hooks up to the dredge that flows to the beach, and they pump slurry material, which is basically wet sand, onto the beach. They build dikes around, material doesn't run back into the ocean, and then the heavy machinery and equipment move the material around to form an engineered template, which makes a taller in elevation and a much wider beach for recreation and the environment. I think it's important to note that the park board doesn't produce any of these projects with sales tax or property tax. For example, with the beach building, we're producing much larger, more exciting places to recreate for the visitors, but we also are doing that for the residents. What's good for them is good for us, and we get to have it 365 days a year.
The park board's responsibility is to the environment, the residents, and the tourists. In the last 10 years, the park board has generated $147 million to nourish the beaches. Properties along Babes Beach, which is an engineered beach led by the park board, have quadrupled in value over the last 10 years. So that's a huge generation of ad valorem tax, property tax for the city. And so the park board has been very instrumental in providing beach nourishment and increased property values in the city. I'm extremely proud of the beach nourishment that we've done. I'm extremely proud of the short-term rental registration program that the park board has implemented in the hotel occupancy tax collection. I'm extremely proud of the messaging that's gone out from the park board and the PR that the park board has done. And it's one of the things that just blows me away is we were totally unaffected by COVID. We actually cut our budget from $3.1 million per penny to $1.57 million per penny, and we created a reserve because of that, because the penny increased in value during COVID. Our PR and marketing team did an excellent job of advertising and promoting in the drive time market, because during COVID people weren't flying. So we saw a huge increase in tourism, which shocked me and was a brilliant stroke on behalf of the park board to make that happen.
I think one of the things that I was particularly pleased about was, getting a lot of the, believe it or not, the trash containers organized and uniform That was such a big deal to us because they'd always been so haphazardly placed, and we wanted some that looked uniform going down the seawall. So that was one of the big things that we did. And the new fancy sturdy things that's on the park board now, all of that was outgrowth of that. And we all just thought the previous one was just so tacky for us to be a tourist attractive place. And then they got to be uniformed, and then we had this great project where I think high school kids painted some of them, and we left them, and that was really pleasing too.
I think another project that has recently occurred here that is so good for the community is the 25th Street lighting project, where the park board partnered with the city of Galveston to light up the trees on a permanent basis throughout the year. I think the community sees that that's a wonderful partnership, and they're benefiting from that.
Beach nourishment is always going to be the one that comes to everybody's mind, but just the daily operations and cleaning the beach. But also, we've done a lot of big projects with the beach park board in terms of development of things like at Seawolf Park. We're continuing to work with you guys at Stewart Beach. But even small projects like the benches along the seawall, Frito-Lay Park, all those things are all projects that we've worked on with the park board in collaboration. The seawall is the face of Galveston, and we need to make sure that it looks good, and that's mainly what we do with the park board, is keeping that area in tip-top shape, and park board actually does a fantastic job of doing that.
Most recently, we went through the process of renourishing and repairing the beaches at Delanera RV Park. This project was in collaboration with FEMA repair from Hurricane Harvey. It also involved funding from the General Land Office KEPRA program. The project was a placement of about 118,000 cubic yards from the end of the seawall to the western property line of Delanera RV Park. And the project was made possible through truck hauling material from a upland borrow site over off of Harborside Road, and then put in place with heavy machinery. The end of the seawall has one of the highest rates of erosion in Galveston, and it's also a critical location for evacuation for the folks that live on the west end. So it's very, very important for that beach to continue to stay nourished, wide, and healthy. Our beach nourishment projects require a great deal of partnership and collaboration. We have many partners, both in funding and just local partnership. They run the gamut of the Army Corps of Engineers, the Texas General Land Office, 2 different grant programs, the KEPRA grant and the GOMESA grant funding. We also have our partners at the City of Galveston and the Industrial Development Corporation. Most recently, the Restore Act has provided funding for 2 cycles of beach nourishment. Also, after we have any kind of devastating storm, FEMA is also a funding partner to make these beach nourishment projects possible.
The park board has an excellent relationship with our partners. So the park board is responsible for generating visits, and our service delivery partners, the hoteliers and the restaurateurs, are responsible for providing services to those people, which in turn generates hotel occupancy tax, ad valorem tax from the short-term rental hoteliers that own property, and the restaurateurs, and sales tax from the restaurateurs. So our goal at the park board, or my goal for the park board, is to continue being a revenue-generating entity that helps reduce taxes for the residents and provides revenue from ad valorem tax, sales tax for the city. And I want to continue that. I want that to continue to grow, and we have an excellent team at the park board that's committed to those goals as well.
Park board has not only a vision, but a product that they spread, and we can be part of that, and it goes much farther than we as an individual organization could ever afford. And then they have embraced our special events in a way. And I'm going to use as an example the latest one, in that we are very much a part of Juneteenth. The Grand is a part of it. The park board has actually promoted this in a way that our community celebrates a very special holiday for ourselves. And it's on my calendar now forever. And it's the same way with other things that we do, whether it's a celebration for July 4th, or it's a celebration for Thanksgiving or Christmas, the holiday programs, whatever. We are always a part of that. And we tag our ads with the fact that we're part of the holiday program or whatever. and we help each other. I mean, in a perfect world, what we're doing is that we're working together, not in opposition, to create something that is beneficial to everyone.
Well, for years we've shared assets. I mean, we borrow trash cans and do all that kind of stuff. That's the obvious things. It's one thing to have an event, it's another thing to promote an event, and it's another thing to manage the event. And the park board through the years has done a very good job of being able to attract and actually fund to some degree the marketing efforts of these big events. And the city works with the park board based on the estimates and planning, and we get out there and we try to manage the event. So one, it's successful and safe for the event itself, and also make sure that we minimize the impacts on the residents that live here.
You know, we lived from Labor Day to Dickens. And if you could make it there financially, you would survive to make it to Mardi Gras. And then from Mardi Gras, then you would make it to spring break. And if the weather was good, you would come out of the winter somewhere in the, May, April timeframe with hopes of making some money for the summer, enough to withstand the winters around here. And since the creation of off-season festivals, a lot of concentration on group convention business, the run around the winter has gotten a lot more profitable, a lot less painful, a lot less risky. Mr. Mitchell used to tell me you have to be a genius to make money in Galveston. He was, in fact, very true, and he helped kind of alleviate that problem. The general health of Mardi Gras has returned. The crews are growing in membership. The number of parades are growing. Independent small crews are flourishing. So it's moving in the right direction. And the whole goal of Mardi Gras, the reason Mr. Mitchell started it, was to fill hotel rooms. And we've been very fortunate to have increased ADR and high occupancy rates in good seasons and in bad seasons. The risk of the promoter is always going to be the weather, but the hotel rooms are booked.
We had volleyball tournaments. We brought the AVP beach volleyball to Stewart Beach. The radio stations out of Houston would put on events to bring people in. But we're not perfect, and we learn as we go. And there was a lot of things that had to be learned about promotions and about advertising and about beach security and about lifeguard service, and beach cleaning has changed so much.
When I started serving on the TDAC committee at the park board, it was so energizing to see the work that got started. And it was a matter of seeing, what do we need to bring here to really introduce people to Galveston more? How do we support the things that are here? And we have been a partner in so much of the marketing effort of the park board all these years. We jump on board for an ad program or whatever. So for me, arts and culture are the very fabric that brings a community together. It's what drives the community to do their best, and it's also what produces a product that brings people to you. I love the fact that Johnny Smecca, who is a friend, but also a business owner who has a business right across the street from us and others down the block, is the first person I knew who made a statement when they opened Saltwater Grill that our business plan does not work without that theater sitting across the street. And you can imagine how warmed the cockles of my heart, because he knew and he got it. And he knew that our audience was going to be the audience that supported his businesses. And in fact, when we do a show, 70 to 80% of our audience is coming from out of town. They're staying in the hotels, they're eating in the restaurants, they're buying gas, they're shopping, they're doing all of those things that we want our tourists to do when they come to our island. And we are a pretty classic example of how that works. The entertainment industry, and you could say the whole arts and culture industry, as large as it is, and it's huge, is a very small family when it comes right down to it. The real mission of the park board is to create those relationships so that we're all working in that together, that we're all rowing in the same direction, that we're part of a team. And I'm proud to be part of it.
We went from being able to drive on the beach, it went from that to the alcohol ban. People were used to going to the beach and having a beer. It's public, I can drink.
At that time, the seawall and the beach adjacent to it was heavily populated with young people drinking heavily. And we were getting complaints about harassment when they walked on the seawall. It was really pretty nasty. And of course, there was no cleanup by any of the people that were leaving stuff. Of course, I don't know that that's changed that much, but it came up at a meeting. Lyda Ann was the chair then. Don Maffridge and Joey May were still on. There were complaints about alcohol, and a discussion ensued, and a motion was made. I don't remember if Lyda Ann made the motion, and we voted to ban alcohol on the seawall and on the beach. Glass bottles had been banned a while before that.
The City of Galveston new hotel convention center committee, the selection of that, who would be the owner of that. Former Park Board Chair Melvin Williams was the chair at the time. Bless Melvin's soul, that's one of the things that I still like to get back at him about, is he and the then executive director, Lou Muller, came and took me out to a nice lunch, and I knew it was something behind that when they invited me to a nice lunch, and lo and behold, they wanted me to chair this committee that I thought was just overwhelming, unyielding, because as I understood, there were only going to be 3 proposals coming from the most powerful folks on the island at the time. So Melvin and Lou Muller asked me, and I probably had one more glass of wine than I should have, and I agreed. But I must say that's been one of the most rewarding things that I have done in Galveston, is chairing that committee. It's important because whoever won that selection would get a number of the pennies to help offset the cost of that and build that. I want to say it was maybe 4 3/4 pennies, I believe. I'm not absolutely sure. The convention center had been for a long time been run by the Moody Gardens, and they were kind of acting as the city convention center. So it was up for bid, and we asked for RFPs. At the time, we did not have nearly as many hotel rooms, beds, as there are at the moment here in 2023. I'm not even sure we could have hosted a 5,000 member convention. We certainly didn't have the meeting facilities to do that. That was one of the reasons, is just to have a meeting facility so that we could attract major conventioners, major associations. So with a major convention center, centrally located or wherever it's located, but it's built for conventions, I think everybody thought that would help tourism and help us get more conventions, get our share of the conventions, sitting in this wonderful place that we're sitting at the end of the southeast of Texas.
Well, it was time to look for a new convention center, as the old convention center was either going to have major repairs and or look at a new convention center at a different site. Currently, there was also a convention center at Moody Gardens. And Mr. Fertitas put up a very good presentation about building the convention center, where it is today. And that convention center has been a very big success. It's very well funded, as most people know. It kind of appears that if they didn't have any conventions coming to Galveston, it would still be very well funded. I think we should be proud that we've got a great convention center and a very good staff here, under the leadership of Paul Schultz.
After Ike, we all came back to Galveston and found that our landlord at the time wanted to double our rent. That was unheard of. I mean, we were all devastated and hurting, and to double our rent was ludicrous. So we went through a process of buying the building, and as soon as we started to move in, because our executive director at the time just wanted to paint the walls, and I'm not even sure put up new carpet, but we started to move things in the building, and it turns out that it had asbestos. So we wound up gutting the entire building, and it was fabulous. It is a sturdy monument. It is not going to fall down anytime soon. With the help of Johnson Controls and several other entities, we accomplished a LEED building, which was unusual at the time. We were far ahead of ourselves in thinking that perhaps we ought to put charging stations in the parking lot. That didn't happen, but we also didn't have that many electrical cars, but maybe that's could be in the future. I did serve during Hurricane Ike, and it was really a scary scene. The beaches were devastated. There was trash all over the seawall. I evacuated, and I think most people did because we had no electricity, no gas, no water. Hurricane Ike was very emotional for all of us. The thing that I remember most about Ike was the silence. It was just dead silence. There was no birds, there were no animals. It was really awful.
Hurricane Ike was a wake-up call for everybody. It caused everybody to work together, and not just after the storm. We worked very closely with your beach patrol in advance of the hurricane. Your guys, the park board guys were out there, the beach patrol guys were out there helping evacuate people from their homes as the water started coming up and people became frightened. They were a big part of our search and rescue after the hurricane.
The beach patrol is a big player, when hurricanes come in, and so with Hurricane Ike was no exception, because our immediate role is to keep people safe in the water. And so that could involve, at first, at the early stages, keeping people enclosed, then keeping people out of the water, then allowing only surfers and not swimmers, then keeping the surfers out. So there's a lot of enforcement that goes in there, and usually not a lot of rescues, but when the rescues do happen, they're serious. I mean, you're in big surf, you're near rocks, it's the real deal. So Hurricane Ike, when it rolled in, that was our first role, was to protect the beaches and to keep people out of the water. And then we went into this mode of urban rescue, urban flooding rescue. And so we pulled, hundreds of people out of their houses, off the roof of houses, using jet skis, swimming, wading, through the conditions that Ike brought on. And a lot of that was unknown territory for us. I mean, it was electricity and water, and it was smoke because the yacht basin burned up, and all this kind of stuff that was happening. And the winds, our plan was to get off the streets at 35-mile-an-hour winds, and we ended up staying out there till the winds hit a little bit over 100, and we saved hundreds of people because we took that risk on ourselves to stay out later than we had planned. We basically moved people to high ground, which was Broadway for the longest, and then the other public safety groups, mostly police department, picked those people up and brought them to Ball High School, which was the shelter of last resort. With that said, we went through Hurricane Ike. We did well, and so did all the other public safety groups. It just, considering the circumstances, it was terrifying. In fact, the room that we're recording this in was one of the rooms we were sleeping in during Ike, so it's bringing back some bad memories here. But the thing that happened after Hurricane Ike, which was really made Galveston unique, was that afterwards, Mayor Lyde Ann Thomas, who was a personal and family friend of mine, asked me and then Chief Wisco from the fire department to get together and kind of come up with a plan to better respond to storms like that. Not that we had done anything not good. It wasn't anything like that, but it was sort of like, what do y'all need? And we were like, well, we have learned a lot through this process, and we had been having communications with police, fire, EMS, and us, about after Hurricane Ike. And so we sat down and we created a template for what later became Galveston Marine Response, which was fire, police, EMS. Jamaica Beach Fire and Rescue was a huge partner for us in that, and other groups. Now we've got UTMB Police, we've got A&M, we've got, Texas City, Coast Guard's a player now, Texas Parks and Wildlife. So we've got a whole bunch of groups that are in that response group.
We were on a path to come back from Hurricane Ike when the park board put sand on the beach and let people know we were open for business the following summer.
One of the main things that comes to my mind when it comes to recovery that the park board took on and championed was the renourishment of the beach from 12th to 61st to get the island back running and tourism flowing again.
The city cleaned up most of the trash off of various areas and consolidated it on the near west end, as well as several other places. We saw those mounds of dirt and debris for probably a year, covered with boats that had washed ashore, up on people's lawns. It was a remarkable experience, one that I don't really want to go through again.
I think that the park board and the city to this day are still wrapping up Ike recovery projects. Things like the demolition of the pavilion at Seawolf Park. Immediately after the storm, just the removal of all the debris that was not only left on the beaches, but that was thrown up on the seawall. These all took collaboration of everybody. We were all hit equally as hard. We all had suffered the same losses. but we banded together to get it done. We were back open for business for Lone Star Rally that November after the hurricane, and that was in no short order due to the partnership between the park board and the city, because we needed that. We needed the country to know that Galveston was back open for business. And it took some marketing efforts from the park board, and it took a lot of efforts from the city to get things ready. There were a lot of dark areas because we didn't have lights, but we pulled it off. And I think that was the beginning of the turnaround after Hurricane Ike.
People came after Ike to help us. They cared about us. We're their neighbor. Came to the Strand, they came to the beach, they came to the restaurants, the few that were opened, and they supported us throughout the whole time of our recovery. It's amazing.
In 2009, my partner and I decided that, post Hurricane Ike and the multi-million-dollar media campaign that the news media put out that Galveston was closed, flooded, and destroyed. It was a tough season for us. In September and October, we were losing money that hadn't happened in a few years. And so we decided that we needed to create some events downtown that would bring business and spin the idea that we're closed. Businesses were opening, we needed traffic. And so we planned in September and executed in 43 days the Yagas Chili Quest and Beer Fest, followed that with the Galveston Food and Wine Festival, and then the Galveston Wild Texas Shrimp Festival. All of those designed to get people down there in the off season. It also coincides with the 4th weekend of the month, which is also the month that businesses pay their sales tax. And so when you have to pay sales tax, liquor tax, and a payroll that week, it's a pretty tough week.
The East End Lagoon came about because Lyda Ann Thomas, who was our mayor, and Jackie Cole, who was on city council, had heard that developers wanted to make the East End Lagoon into a golf course. The land belonged to the federal government. They had petitioned the federal government to hand over the land to the city, and the federal government did. There was a great deal of angst over a golf course on that property, and what a shame that would have been if it had happened. There was a committee that was led by Jackie Cole and Mayor Thomas. They wrote an RFP to anyone that was interested in developing a first-rate nature preserve. I would say at least 25 or 30 people that answered that were qualified. We reviewed them all. We selected 2 or 3. This took about a year. We finally decided on one and proceeded on that path. I would say an over-aggressive plan was put in place that the numbers in the end would not work. But what is available now is something that I think Galveston can work with. It has wonderful trails. They're not really long, but hopefully in the future they will be much longer. There's a viewing stand in the plan. And the people who worked on this for a long, long time were people like Ed Eubanks, Mort Voller, even Bill Merrill from Texas A&M University. I worked on it. Julianne Brown worked on it. There were many people involved, and now it's become a really wonderful place to be. The East End Lagoon is a great example of what a barrier island is. Uplands, it's wetlands, it's mangroves, it's the beach, and then you turn around and you look at commerce going down the Houston Ship Channel and the Galveston Ship Channel. It's just an amazing sight. You look at the Gulf of Mexico and see hundreds of ships lined up to come in for commerce in the entire world they're coming from. You can see all this at the East End Lagoon. It's also a great teaching environment for our children and for adults who want to know what it's like to live on a barrier island.
In the 80s, it still was family. You still had Stewart Beach, which was always a family beach. After Alicia, the Stewart Beach Pavilion was destroyed after Alicia, and that's why they wound up building the one that they have now. Then when they started charging, started to change a little bit. Now if you charged, you had to provide something. You had to provide services. You had to provide restrooms, and then they provided showers. They built Apfel Park. Then, after they did that, they wanted to increase the usership. A couple of us had connections with the radio station in Houston, and KRBE was the radio station. We got them to up the full sponsorship. They brought the bands in, they brought everything. Park Board didn't pay for anything except security. But when you're parking 7,000 cars at an event, you can pay for security. But back then, we had parking attendants, but it was okay. The money was going out, but the money was coming in. Belonged to the park board under the direction of whoever was the director, Mr. Delanera for many, many years, and then Don Chattel.
We had executive director issues. We had a turnover in the executive director more than once while I was on the park board. One that was pretty cantankerous. That was definitely an issue. Dealing with ownership of services at the east end of the island. I think it was ran by popular restaurant owner Alan Flores and his friend. And just dealing with that and how to manage that. Who gets what? Parking revenues, does that go to them or does it go to the park board? It's narrow defined, it goes to the park board. Clearly, there's no doubt about that. But all of those issues stowed up in that was an issue that had to be resolved, and luckily we did get those things resolved. The current challenges of the park board is, and I don't want to sound too simplistic, is just to define the who's in charge issue. And if that's a goal, then there's so many objectives underneath that one goal until it can be daunting. But that's the main thing that needs to be sorted out. Who's in charge? And who's in charge of what? And once everybody, including the park board, understand that, I think we can get on down the road, because the park board is too important for this city, and the fact that the Enabling Act was created by the legislature. I've seen some say the Enabling Act was not created by the legislature. I'm just not sure how somebody could ever get that idea. Who else would create it? Yes, it did originate in the city, but it was created by the legislature because somebody had to go to the legislature and said, let's do this. And not many people in the state has a park board. Last time I remember, there was only 2 people with a park board. I'm not sure what that's like now. But that's a big challenge.
It's really vital that we have a city council representative on the park board for a number of reasons. One, they can give their input and give them their intuition of how the city council is looking at various subjects. And then also the park board can give that same information right back to the city council rep, who can take that back to city council. Everything should be above board. There should be nothing hidden. And in my tenure of being on the park board, that's exactly the way it was. Mayor Braun was the city council rep when I was on the park board for a while there too. And I think it was a very positive thing. Sometimes when you read the information that you see in the paper today, it's disappointing that there seems to be so much difference of opinion, and especially by those that are right there in the meetings. And sometimes you don't know whether that's just the newspaper, going off on a different tangent than what the people are doing. I have a lot of confidence in the park board, and I have a lot of confidence in the city council and the city manager too. I think they have their own issues that they've got to deal with, and the park board has their issues. And hopefully, when this all is sorted out, we'll all be back on the same page and going in the same direction. And I think that will happen eventually.
At the end of 60 years here, I think you can look back and realize that so much has been accomplished, and so many people from so many parts of Galveston have contributed to making that happen. Looking forward to the next 60 years, I think that our path is fairly clear. I think getting there may not be as easy, but I think seeing where you want to go, visualizing what you want to be, I think is for me, is pretty easy. I think that we need to really work on being more inclusive, and we need to engage more partners in who we're working with. I think we want our board to reflect the community. I think we would like our department heads and our departments to do the same thing. So I think that's one aspect of that. And I think if we're going to move and stay relevant with the times, I think we really need to concentrate on making sure that we fully represent the island that we're from, and the community we're from, and the state we're from. I do see some wonderful things like this recently, this big support of Juneteenth, I think is a great thing the park board's just done. We're working on a project that is absolutely amazing, which is African American Beach and Lifeguard Memorial Group. And so we just got recognition for a Undertold Story marker for the lifeguards who worked up at that beach at 28th and 29th Street. We're working on a digital format for that, and we're working on a huge monumental sculpture, which I think will be really cool. And we're joining with all kind of community groups doing that. And so that kind of thing, I really see as having a lot of value, and I think that's a path forward.
Yes, we're going to celebrate Juneteenth. Yes, I'm aware of Black History Month. Yes, I'm aware of the Latino, all the different activities. I don't check a box that says in this month I do this thing, because the fact is I had a Black performer tell me one time, I can't accept all the gigs I get offered in February, and I starve the rest of the year. And he was telling me that because I booked him in October, or it was May, or whenever it was. And he said, I really appreciate the fact that you broaden the spectrum, and we're not just artists in February, we're artists year round. That meant so much to me. You know, Galveston is such a unique city, and I tell people all the time, and I said, you know, we really are the melting pot, and it's a truism for us. People call themselves a melting pot. I think ours is real. It comes from the fact that we were that second largest immigration port. It comes from the fact that we have so much diversity here, and people have grown up with it. That the people who were part of the growth of Galveston in the early years accepted people in a way that is not necessarily true across this country. I wish somebody could shine a light on us sometime and say, these people get it.
I think the diversity is important. One of my good friends is Sam Collins. Sam is pushing for Juneteenth, and he helped put the Juneteenth exhibit up downtown. He has another exhibit coming up soon that'll be behind the library. That's actually came from Ghana. I think diversity in terms of not only African American, white, Hispanic, all that, but also the diversity of economics. You know, there are some very, very poor people that live in Galveston, and there's some very, very wealthy people that live in Galveston, and everybody gets along.
You know, for me, Galveston is an incredibly diverse city where the rich of the rich, great families of Galveston go to school with some of the poorest people around, and nobody knows the difference. That you can interact with people from all walks of life in the same high school. Everybody goes to the same high school and plays the same youth sports, and that creates community, the sense of community I want to live in. It's a mini Manhattan, in my opinion, mini New York. We're all blended together. You're just a Galvestonian. And we'll stand up to anybody, especially tourists, against the Galvestonians.
In order for a jazz festival that can attract top names, top management, Galveston has to look like it's a welcoming city for that population of folks. It has to be easy to get in, easy to get out. It has to have great restaurants. They have to be attractive, to be easy accessible to all of those kinds of things. Mobility around the city. There are a lot of folks that came into the island. I think we had 5,000 people, and more than that, probably close to 10,000 people over the course of a Friday. Well, there was a Thursday, a Friday, a Saturday, and ended on Sunday. But many of those folks came into the island, went to Moody Gardens, and never went to anything else. That, to me, is a mistake. The city of Galveston should be doing something else to make it easier for the other things that go on in the city can be well known to an event like that, even if it's not a jazz festival, so that folks will know that, God, we got a wonderful restaurants over here. We got this big ship sitting over there on the dock. We got all of these wonderful looking houses, and we got a statue of Jack Johnson here. We've got all of these things, but if nobody knows about it, you just come to the island, you turn on 61st Street, go to Moody Gardens, get back, go to 61st Street, and you're off the island. It would just have to be a much more attractive place for people of that population to want to come.
I think the park board is very important because it's independent. It doesn't serve another political entity. It serves the people that it's been commissioned to serve. And that is the tourists that come to Galveston, the hotels, the restaurants, and all that, and the conventions. I left that out, but definitely the conventions. People come, they enjoy our environment, and then they leave their money and they go home.
Well, predicting tourism trends is very, very important. Meeting with the park board staff and listening to their presentation of their budgets, why they need new equipment, where they need to go in the next few years, how many more lifeguards do we need because of expanding all the beaches. All of that is vital to understanding it, and they're so well developed. And the need for the additional funding is extremely important. And especially as you see the number of tourism hotels and individual homes that are rented. We nearly have as many vacation homes that are rented on a daily basis as we do hotels. So that's double the number of people that are visiting the island. And when you think about the double of the visitation of the island, that means that our police department and our fire department's got to maintain and take control of traffic and other issues that are involved when you bring that many people, such as the bike rally. A fun thing to experience, probably not a fun thing to manage, but it has been really a fantastic opportunity for Galveston.
All of us live in our own worlds, and so one of the key elements of the park board is that they bring everybody together so we can learn about each other, we can work together, we can collaborate, and we can make big things happen. And I don't think there was ever a more dramatic time in getting that done than after Ike, when we were all struggling. We all had our businesses that were flooded, and we had nothing going on there. We had to repair ourselves. And the park board managed to pull some things together that opened us up and said, we can do this. You know, we can survive. And all of us had experience at surviving because so many of our buildings had gone through so much. I mean, our building went through the 1900 storm, for crying out loud. It's not like we had not been there. And one of the things we did after that, we did an open mic where people could just come and be on stage, present themselves, to give them a sense of worth and of positivity to do that. And over and over and over again, that's part of what the park board does. I mean, no one has ever seen the beaches look like this in decades. I grew up when there were really big beaches, and the beaches just kept shrinking. And to have the kind of vision that says, we can get our beaches back, we have a way to do this, has been amazing. And to create a whole new beach from 61st Street on for Babe's Beach. Somebody told me that their family loved Babe's Beach because it was right in their neighborhood. You know, they lived right behind the seawall in that area. And so it gets attention, but it also brings us together. When we have these committee meetings, and we have maybe an offshoot of something that's a temporary committee even, the purpose is always to bring people together to do good work. I really believe in my heart that everybody who attends those meetings, who are working in this business that has anything to do with tourism and our island and the importance and the impact that we have, come to those meetings with a very positive feeling that we can do something with this. We're working right now on Galveston becoming a Texas music-friendly city. And we are finding out from people things that we hadn't thought about and things that we need to work on and improve upon.
The park board's involvement in Mardi Gras in the early years is critical. With Dickens, with the marketing of Galveston, the branding of Galveston, the way things look, that is all part of a great picture. It has evolved, and it's very important to continue that.
I would tell anyone who lives in the city that if they want to serve their city and volunteer, the park board is a great place to be. It's invigorating. There's a lot going on. It's very interesting. You learn all kinds of things like about beaches and what you're allowed to do and not. You learn a lot about the law. It's stimulating. You have wonderful people that work there and serve on the board. A person that would fit at the park board is someone that's interested in seeing our tourism business become more viable. It brings people to the city. It helps the economy. It certainly helps the hotels and the restaurants, all of the small shops.
Let's say you want to be a board member for the park board. The neat thing about being that is that your actions are really directly impact things on on the island. And so you're making decisions that you'll see enacted that same year, and you'll see the results of within a really short time frame. Even while you're still serving on that term, you'll see that result of that. And I think that's a pretty neat deal. And to me, as a public safety person, as a lifeguard who chooses a career where your actions have this really direct response, like I went home today feeling good because I moved 130 people away from rip currents, and I rescued somebody that would have died otherwise. That's a really immediate response. And to me, I really respond to that. I mean, it matches who I am. But I see the board members doing the same thing. They can come in and they can make decisions that instantly have impact. And I really love that. And I think that's what makes Park Board really special compared to other governmental entities. And I have utmost respect for city council and the mayor and city manager and all these guys that just get in there and they're dealing with the potholes and they're dealing with the water quality issues and all these things that are so essential to us being a vibrant community. But the immediacy of dealing with these tourist related issues is so I don't know, it's fun, but it's also really impactful.
I'm most proud of being on the park board to say that in a small way, I participated in the development of Galveston Island, not only as a tourist attraction, but in the development of the park board and becoming a partner with the community. The staff of the park board in so many areas worked very diligently and put in a lot of hours to not only maintain the excellence and the idea of Galveston as an attraction for individuals to come and spend time, but they also work diligently keeping in mind that this is partnered with the city and with the community. And I think I'm most proud of just being a part of that, even though in a small way. I can say, and very proud of this, that I served with the park board and am part of what the park board is today.
Personally, I'm not that involved in the appointment of the trustees. That's more of a policy decision. Actually, I usually don't even participate in the interviews. But I would tell you that historically, what council looks for is somebody that has the passion for Galveston. It's not necessarily something specific to a beach or a venue or a particular project, but what is your passion for Galveston and how do you want to serve the people of Galveston? Because tourism is an integral part of who we are. And managing that tourism becomes tantamount to a whole lot of other things that we do here in the city to make sure that we provide a good quality of life for the folks that buy homes here and live here and rent here. So I think that's probably if you were to ask the council members, I would be shocked and surprised if they said anything different than that.
There's no tips. There's no monetary advantage to being a trustee. You have to love Galveston. I think the most important thing is we have to take care of what we're supposed to take care of. That's the people that visit here. The Hotel and Lodging Association depends on the advertising that's created. The beaches, as I said earlier, Nourishment, and making sure that the beaches are safe.
It's very interesting being a trustee at the park board because while it is volunteer, you are spending a whole lot of time doing the work that is there, and it's really important work. It is meaningful, and I think that all of my fellow trustees would agree with me when I say that we give of our time freely because we know how very important it is. For me, it was a monthly meeting with the trustees, and at the very beginning we were actually having 2 meetings a month, and we later cut back from that, plus the committee I served on as chair and then vice chair, which was TDAC, and then later on the finance committee. So you can imagine that that's a lot of hours in a month. And for people who, like me, are very busy anyway, it's a commitment that you make because you feel like it's very, very important to participate.
It is a huge time commitment. Every trustee is asked to be on at least 2 committees, if not 3 committees, and meet at least once a month, if not more. And the trustees that are on the Finance and Operations Committee have to spend an inordinate amount of time working with Bryson on the budget. So if somebody wants to become a trustee of the park board, I would encourage them to make sure that they have the time commitment and that they have the dedication and that they understand the park board and what the park board does and how they operate and understand the business model.
I see the future of the East End Lagoon as a place where teachers can bring their students, where parents can bring their kids to educate them. I see an education center. I even see some camping sites. I would love to see that happen. I see it as a playground almost for nature for all of the people that come to Galveston.
The East End Lagoon is still a project that I'd like to see get finished. I have walked down there, but I'd like to see the pavilion be built. I'm not sure what is going to happen to East Beach, but we have talked way back in 2012, 14, 16, 18, the need to upgrade East Beach. What I guess they call it Stewart Beach. We like to watch the volleyball, and the sand castle. Those kind of things make Galveston unique. We also have the park over on Pelican Island. I'd love to see that developed even more and have more local people go out there. A lot of fishermen go out there, they fish all night.
One of the more tangible things that we need to address, and the next 60 years, really the next 5 years are going to be really critical here, is we have to address some of this infrastructure. We've done so well in some ways, and in other ways we have not done as well as far as maintaining our infrastructure. And so the lifeguards, for example, are working out of a building that's, I think saying it's a hazard might be a stretch, but it's close. So we're dumping money out of our reserve fund into maintaining this building so we can stay in there and keep it safe for our kids, our junior guard program, our young lifeguards when they go up there. Our community, we have 60 or so volunteers that work under the Beach Patrol umbrella as well, with the Survivor Support Network, with the Wave Watcher program, all that stuff. And we have to have a facility. This is 350 people under the Beach Patrol umbrella. And we have to have an appropriate facility to operate out of, and a beach house will not work. Despite what people are suggesting, a beach house doesn't work. And so we need a professional facility, just like the 8 fire stations on the island, just like the police department's really professional facility they work out of. Lifeguards are no less, and need equally, if not more, because we have so many people that we house, and we serve so many people with the millions, 7+ million people that we're serving a year. And so we really need to look at a professional lifeguard headquarters, whether that's integrated into a big beach pavilion or if it's standalone. We have designs for a standalone. It would be really easy to move forward with this. We have the architectural rendering already. I would really like to see us address some of these needs first as we move forward.
You have to train your lifeguards. You have to have a place where they can come to train. You have to have a place that's accessible to a number of people, because you're going to have first aid situations that go beyond just a lifeguard's ability to perform, or they don't see the lifeguard and they want to know, where's the first aid? The first aid is at the Beach Patrol office. It's important to be on the beach. It's accessible for the lifeguards, it's accessible for, not sheriff's deputies, they're park board policemen now, to be able to access their Beach Patrol unit and be able to patrol that beach, to be visible.
We need to continue what we're doing, and then we need to move forward with other activations. So one of the projects that I've been personally involved with over the last 4 years is Stewart Beach. And I'm very disappointed that Peter Davis, who is the chief and is well respected throughout the United States of America, having to house in a dilapidated old building at Stewart Beach. So I'm hopeful that City Council will work with the Park Board to build a new building at Stewart Beach for the Beach Patrol, and also to build better amenities at all the parks for the residents and the tourists that come along. Working with the Park Board, we can help make that happen.
We're going to have to get out of providing lifeguards just for 7 months of the year. We're going to need to grow the full-time staff, and we're probably going to need to really look at the West End, the increased use on the West End. We're going to have to do some life-saving out there that we're not doing other than just patrols. The stretch between Stewart Beach and East Beach, there's just so many areas that we're going to see as tourism grows that we're going to need the public safety component to match that. Whether it's life-saving, whether it's law enforcement, whether it's beach cleaning, all this kind of stuff has to keep pace with the growth in tourism and the higher beach use more of the year. And in return, we get, we're going to have more resources coming in to help fund that stuff. So I think that's something that we're going to have to move toward. But I think the future looks really bright. We have consistently gotten board members that are really tuned in and responsive to the needs of the island community, the tourists, and also the park board departments. They've been really easy and good to work with. And I think we're seeing a new era of the city and the park board coming in sync and working together. And I think that's to the benefit of all of us, because we all are here for the same purpose. And from Beach Patrol's point of view, we're a city department and we're a park board department. We're the designated life-saving service for the city. We are assisting all kind of different city groups, public safety groups and otherwise. And we're an equal and really enthusiastic partner within the park board structure. And we're really happy to work with Coastal Zone, with tourism and development, with the administration of the park board. I think we've got a really good thing going, and we just need to maintain that.
Looking forward, I'm really excited about the next beach nourishment project that will be taking place this coming summer. And we will be doing a beneficial use of dredge material project with the Army Corps of Engineers west of Jimmy's on the pier. We also are embarking on engineering for the design for another beach nourishment project that will begin west of Delanera RV Park and will extend to 13 Mile Road on the west end of Galveston, Texas. Although I think Galveston is fantastic, looking forward with the leadership that the park board brings to Galveston Island, our island can only get better and better.
I'm 80 years old. I like to relax. When my kids were young, I used to go to the beach. I don't know, I like to take my wife out to dinner once in a while. Rudy and Paco's are the top of the list. I've known Paco since he was a manager. He's a consummate host. I like to go to the press box.
I like the beach. I love the beach. I live near the seawall. I can easily walk to the beach, and I do that every time I have a chance. Ride my bike down the beach. I'm a motorcycle rider. I love riding my motorcycle down the length of the seawall all the way across San Luis Pass. Just sitting down on the strand with some friends, drinking beer, watching people walk by. But there was a very popular club here called Club 21. Cheryl Rozier was part of that, Rusty Legg and his wife. That was just a bunch of us who just really got to know each other. Charlie Collier, just Steve Armstrong. There was a bunch of us that was our cheers.
When I play tourist, which is really very infrequent at this point in my life, I like to bring visitors, and my wife and myself like to go to the Strand to see the historic downtown. I think we have probably one of the largest collections of turn-of-the-century structures here on the island. Touring our downtown and shopping downtown, you get an up-close and personal involvement with these historical structures. Secondly, I like the West End. One of the areas that a lot of people don't realize is so relaxing, and seeing the ecotourism type components of our island is the Galveston Island State Park. What a wonderful area to go down to see the flora and the fauna in that area. And it's very impressive to know that in the past this entire island probably was that way. And the third is our harbor. You look at our harbor and you think of industrial type operations, but now with the cruise ships coming in and out, we have the USS Texas right across from Pier 19 being refurbished there at Gulf Copper, and with the industrial component of the oil drilling rigs that come into Galveston for servicing. It's a wonderful area to really people watch and to activity watch on the island.
Well, we've recently built a new home in Avia and really love the community. I think the Sullivans have done a beautiful job in developing that property. We're right across from the golf course. We get to see a lot of my friends either hitting it good or bad down the fairway. I play there 2 or 3 times a week, and we have about 25 or 30 people in our group that play on Saturdays and Sundays. We have an awful lot of friends, and my wife much more than I. We love it. We love our friends. We go out with our friends, have dinner with our friends. In fact, we're going out with the Guidos here again soon. And there's just so many people in Galveston that make Galveston what it is. And I've been lucky enough to meet many of them both through tourism and through my wife.
The Grand, we try and do several shows there a year. We spend a lot of time at the Art Center, volunteering at the Art Center. We enjoy all the restaurants, and it seems like there's a new restaurant every month or so. We try those out. Doug doesn't like to sit in the sun for very long. He has a problem with getting too hot. So that's why we're thinking about going out of town in the heated months. We also, we work on different projects. If somebody needs something done, we try and help people out getting things done. And we have great friends here.
Well, I'm a big foodie, so I love experiencing food in Galveston because it's so fun. I love driving down the seawall every day. It's important to me. It kind of opens up the world, as I drive down, whether it's a drizzly day, or as Frank Billingsley would say, a drizzle day, or it's sunshine or whatever. I love seeing the colors in the sky. I love seeing the water change colors. That's really important to me.
We love the restaurants here. We love to go to the restaurants, and we're members of the country club. My wife is heavily ingrained as a volunteer at the country club. She's president of the Galveston Country Club, and she's on the board of directors of the Women's Association of Galveston. So we both spend a lot of time volunteering. I spend an inordinate amount of time working with the park board, and I love it. I enjoy it. I'm not complaining, but we spend that time. We go to the Grand almost every show we see at the Grand, and we love the restaurants. I belong to Rotary, and that's the other service organization I belong to. Rotary has a motto of service above self. My wife and I always try and live that motto, service above self, and so I would like to spread that around the city, that we're all servants of the city and of the park board and of the port, and we want to do what's best for the residents in this area.
Who are some of the most notable members of the park board during my tenure? Obviously, the chairman that I went on was Carl Robertson, but I was also on with Lottie Ann Thomas, who became mayor. She definitely was notable. And as I said earlier, my seat colleague next to it was Marilyn Swartz. That was a delight serving next to her, because I could, most of the times, bless Marilyn, I hope she doesn't smack me right now, but most of the time I couldn't pay attention to what's going on because Marilyn is mumbling in my ear over here about what somebody should have said and what they shouldn't have said in some pretty colorful language too. Marilyn was a delight to serve with. Buzz Elton, who was on that convention selection committee. Obviously Melvin Williams, who got on as I was going out, but I knew Melvin because we both worked at UTMB. Carl Kelly, my good friend Carl Kelly. He and I were two African Americans that were on the committee, and we proceeded P.J. Ziegler, who was the first African American. Then the two of us went on there. Paulie Gatto, and he and I became really good friends. But I'm sure I'm forgetting some of those folks that really had a really good impact on me. Why is Galveston special to me? Because of a lot of the names that I've mentioned that I've just gotten to know over the years. I was a lot younger at the time, trying to find my way around the political spectrum, if you will, in Galveston, and a lot of those folks helped me with that. It really brought me into various circles and helped me understand what's going on in Galveston. And this little island that's a population some 50,000 folks acts like it's a population of 500,000. Most of what you see in the newspaper has already happened, and it has lots more context. And those folks that I got to know over the years helped me understand the context of Galveston, helped me understand that this is very definitely a little city that's got very big britches on.
I stay on the island because I love it here. What better place could I go? I travel the world. I just can't imagine living any other place. Galveston is special because of its people, its energy, history. I stay here for all of that.
My husband and I moved to Galveston in 1999 and have loved every minute of it. One of my favorite things about Galveston is the food. As a matter of fact, I do have a menu item named after me at Boulevard Seafood. We've called Galveston our home since 1999. We love the culture here, we love the food here, we love the relationships we've made, and the architecture.
I think Galveston is so special for a number of reasons. First of all, the community itself. It brings a small town atmosphere, but with large city amenities, and I think that's very attractive for many individuals. The other thing is that I've noticed as an elected official, this city is engaged with the idea of wanting their community to be better. And I, as an elected official and as the mayor currently, greatly appreciate that. The input that I get from the citizens here is always based in the desire to making Galveston the best it can be. I didn't realize, just being a visitor here on the weekend, the other amenities and the quality of life that Galveston had to offer for someone that was here full time. And once we were here full time, it was just a blessing for myself and for my family to be here.
My daughters grew up here, and they settled close enough that we also had an opportunity to have our granddaughters close to us. They've all traveled with me. They've all gone to New York with me. My grandkids were all born once I was working, so they played on that stage, and then every one of them has performed on the stage in some way or another. And so that's very special.
Saltwater and friendship. I love this place, always have. It was never a doubt for me. I lived in Dallas for 22 days. That's 22 working days in a suit and a tie, and that's all I lasted. Traffic, big hair, I was gone.
So we're Texans to begin with. I grew up in Dallas, and my wife was actually born in Alabama, but she went to high school in Houston. And after we traveled around the world, we came and we bought the house in Galveston. We decided that we were going to retire, so we looked around the United States. We went to Florida, specifically on the east coast of Florida. And so when we were getting ready to get on the airplane, we were eating oysters in an oyster bar. And I said, Jackie, so what do you think? She said, let's go home. So we consider Galveston to be home.
When Babe Schwartz established the park board 60 years ago, he dreamed of the success that the park board has had. The park board is to be congratulated for that success.
Certainly, I'd like to congratulate the park board for their 60 years of service to this community. I am so pleased to have been a part of it.
I want to congratulate the park board on their 60th anniversary. For 60 years, they have served this community. And from the standpoint of the city, we're very appreciative for all they've done.
Congratulations to the Beach Park Board for 60 years of continuous operation of serving our visitors and serving our citizens here in Galveston.
Congratulations to the Galveston Park Board for 60 years of service to this community.
I would just like to say congratulations to the park board on making 60 years, a wonderful 60 years, and it's not just the organization, it's really focusing all the hundreds of people, if not thousands of people who have been part of this park board system since it was created. I think that it's a really wonderful thing. So congratulations to all of you, and thank you to all of you who did so much to make the park board what it is today.
Congratulations to the park board on your 60th anniversary. Congratulations on doing an outstanding job for so many years. And the park board has done so much for this island. It's easy to see how well the park board has done in terms of tourism. You know, when I travel, I see park board ads practically everywhere now. That was not the case a number of years ago.
I'd love to congratulate the Galveston Park Board of Trustees on 60 years of service, all the trustees that have served before and after, and all of the great work that the staff does on a daily basis.
I'd like to tell the park board thank you and congratulations for 60 years of dedicated service to the citizens of Galveston and to the state of Texas and wherever else they come from.
60 years. I can't believe the park board has been here 60 years. 60 years of excellence. Go park board.
Congratulations to the Galveston Island Park Board on 60 years of exceptional service to this city and for a tremendous increase in visitors and running the economic engine that drives this city.